Hello and welcome to the vlogging pod. Tonight we are joined by Jennie Milton. And I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Hi, Erie. Yes, this is Jennie Milton from Australia, but coming to you live from snowy Montana.
Oh, you're in Montana currently. Nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful weather outside. Maybe it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I do love snowy weather, so I'm very excited to have some fresh snow and cold temperatures. That's my favorite sort of weather.
Oh, that's awesome. It is cold and we do have snow here in Ohio, so just to let you know. So, Jeannie, now, first, I'd love to talk to you about your courage. Um, I was just amazed. You kite surf, snow kiting, snow skiing, and where does all this ultimate adventure come from?
well, great question. A lot of people have heard of kite surfing, but many of your listeners may not have heard of kite skiing, and it's the winter version of kite surfing. So we use very similar kites, but we have skis or snowboard on our feet instead of a surfboard, and so it's the winter version of a wind sport that is so much fun. It can tow you around any snow-covered surface, and it can even tow me up mountains, like my own personal ski lift to get runs.
Oh, wow. Now,
Yeah.
oh, you said tongue tied. So do you surf as well? That's the word I was looking for, surf.
Well, I surf with a kite. So
Oh.
I didn't grow up surfing. I actually grew up in Australia. I was born in Canberra, which is the capital city, and my mum and dad had a ski and sports store from when I was born. I mean, when I think back to my childhood, I feel like I'm just the luckiest kid ever to grow up in a with a sports store. And of course, my brother and I were always into the latest and the greatest sports that were coming in. And that's probably where we got our courage and love of sports and adventure is from. I've been skiing since I was two. I raced mountain bikes. I figure skated. I rollerbladed. I've done nearly every sport out there, including ones that people have never heard of. And I think that when you grow up doing sports, I was a bit of a scaredy cat when I was a little girl, but courage is something that we can all learn. It's something that we can all improve on with practice, and
Right.
that's what happened to me as I grew up. I got better at skiing, and skiing's such a great sport for building confidence and courage because they start you out on what's called a green run, which is the beginner's runs, and they're not very steep and but they seem scary when you're first learning. And then all of a sudden they become boring because they're not steep enough, and you move up to the blue runs, and all of a sudden your fear level goes up again, and it's like, oh my goodness, it's so steep. And then you build the courage to ski the blue runs, and all of a sudden you're ready for the black runs, and you do it all over again. So it's really this routine of increasing your fear and then
Mhm.
finding the courage to overcome that fear. And so skiing is such a great sport for building people's fear tolerance, increasing people's fear tolerance, and building that courage.
Oh, wow. And see, I'm fearful of heights. I don't know if I could do it. I think I would be like, "Ah!" I'd be so freaked out. So I think that's amazing.
Yeah,
Now, have you ever done the kites where you've went completely up? You know what I mean?
yeah,
What do they call that? Oh, you
jumping.
have. Yes, there
Yeah,
you go. You've done the jumping?
yeah, I can do jumps. Kites are just so amazing. I mean, what a wonderful sport where we can use a natural element that Mother Nature gives us. It gives us wind, and we can actually use the kite to do tricks and jumps. And some of my good girlfriends are world champion in freestyle kiting on water, and you can also compete in freestyle on snow as well. And then there's other sports that also are very similar. They use what's called a wing, which is called paragliding. They use a much
Mhm.
bigger style of kite or wing, I'll call it. And those guys spend more time in the air than they do on the ground. And then there's a sport called speed riding or speed flying, they call it. And those guys use a smaller sort of wing, and they sort of spend half their time on the ground and half their time in the air. And then there's the kiteboarding and the snow kiting, like I do, where we spend most of our time on the ground. So you might actually like that, Eri, but we are able to use the kite to do some tricks and some jumps, which is
Mm,
great fun once you get to that level.
nice. Now, you said you're from Australia. So what temperatures does Australia get to? I mean, what's the lowest it's gotten to? I mean, has it ever been really cold in Australia?
Yeah, well, believe it or not, we have snow there. Did you know that?
Ah! No, I did not.
Hopefully there's your listeners are learning something new today, because so many people think of Australia as beautiful white beaches and
Mm,
tropical islands, and the barrier reef. They think of going to Australia for a hot weather beach holiday, but in about June till October, that's our winter time, so the opposite to here, we actually have snow in a place called the Snowy Mountains.
mm.
We're very literal down there. So if you go to the Snowy Mountains, we have about 12 ski resorts. And I've been skiing since I was 2 years old in Australia. And I remember back when I was younger, we seemed to have a lot more snow than we have today, and the snow was definitely deeper back then, or maybe I was just shorter. But but I think, with the climate changing, we're
Yes.
not getting quite as much snow. The seasons are getting shorter, but we have this incredible backcountry that a lot of people don't even know about. They might go skiing in Australia in the resorts, but if you have the ability to go in the backcountry, either hiking or
Mhm.
using a kite to tow you out there. We have these big, vast, hilly areas, and we have a mountain called Mount Kosciuszko, and that's Australia's highest peak. Now, if you go to Mount Kosciuszko in the middle of winter and it's windy, it can get to probably about 15 to 20 degrees in
Oh,
Fahrenheit in temperature. And then with wind, we can also get that wind chill effect to bring the temperatures lower than that. But most of the time, the snowy mountains tend to sit around that 28 to 30.
wow. So, what drew you to Alaska?
Well, as I started telling you, as a skier, you go from the green runs to the blue runs to the black runs, then you go to the
Mm,
double black diamonds, and then you dream of going to Alaska and skiing those beautiful, majestic peaks that you see in all of the movies. Anybody
mhm,
who's watched a ski movie, there's always going to be some footage from Alaska there, because it really is one of the world's best places for skiing big mountains. And most of the time they're using helicopters to drop you off on the top of a peak. And that was something that I desired to do as I got to become an advanced skier. And
mm.
my both my brother and I did some competing. My brother's actually he actually got gold medals in the Paralympics for skiing. He's in the Australian Hall of Fame and for skiing. So he's just a superstar. I didn't quite make it that far, but I definitely made it as far to Alaska to go heli skiing, and that trip just changed my life, and also increased my fear tolerance and courage for sure.
Wow. Now, you talk about fears and overcoming them, and with this adventures, and you went to the most wild of wilds of Alaska. Tell me about the most scariest time, because we know, I mean, when I think Alaska, okay, and this must tell you what a scaredy cat app, I think bears. And so I'm just curious, what has been, I mean, have you had such encounters? Just let me know.
Well, yes, and if you do speak to any of the locals up in Alaska, many of them have stories of bear encounters in the summertime when they've been hiking, and it was definitely something that I was fearful of when I first went up there. I got this book called Alaskan Bear Tales, and it was just horror stories of people getting attacked and mauled by bears. And so so it was something I was nervous of. But in the winter time, of course, the bears are hibernating. So I always felt a lot safer. But one of my dreams was to see a polar bear in the
Mm.
wild. And I remember, boy, nearly 20 years ago, I took my first trip to Barrow, which is the most northern town in Alaska, and or village, I should say. And there was a photographer there who had permission and permits to drive his oversnow vehicle out to the point in order to photograph polar bears. And I was lucky enough to go out with him for 2 days, and I saw 70 polar bears. I'll help with
Ah.
the accent. 70 polar bears, mothers and twin cubs, and it was just absolutely incredible. So the polar bear became my spirit animal. It became my logo. I started wearing hoodies with polar bears on it, buying pictures of polar bears. There's, if
Oh,
you look at
wow.
my bedroom, there's polar bears everywhere. And so when I got the chance a couple of years ago to go and teach at a school up in northern Alaska, I was so excited. I thought, oh, maybe I'll get to see polar bears again. And I flew up to a town called Kaktovik, and it's famous for polar bear viewings. But when I got there, I was told that, sorry, Jen, you're going to have to come back in August because the polar bears are out on the sea ice, and you're not going to see one this time of year. And I was a bit disappointed, but I was
Mm.
still so excited to be in a native village. I was so excited to have the chance to teach the kids at the school how to fly kites, and share some of my passion and my knowledge with those kids. And then when I wasn't working at the school, of course, I was exploring the village with my skis on, and just cruising around, checking out the houses and the architecture. And one night, a couple of the other people I was staying in the house with, we decided we'd go and watch the sun set at midnight. And at the last second, we had a couple of dogs with us. And at the last second, one of them said, "Hey, Jen, grab your kite." And I was like, "Okay, cool. I'm going to fly my kite at midnight as the sun
Mm.
sets. This is going to be, amazing." And I went out there and started flying my kite. And the next thing I know, one of the girls yells, "Bear, bear."
Ah.
And I look over, and there is a real life polar bear charging towards me.
Mm.
Holy moly. um, I mean, there's other language I'm sure I used at the time, but all of a sudden, I'd never had this experience before, but my primal fear response kicked in. And it didn't matter how many posters I'd read, and how many books I'd read that says, "Don't run, stand there, hold your ground, wave your arms." I turned and I ran. It was just a natural reaction that is built into us, that when we
Mm.
feel fear, we have that fight, flight, or freeze response. And my response was flight. I turned and ran, and the other people I was with, they were all running too. So we all had the same natural response. But the next thing I know, I fell flat on my face, which, not only was I the person at the back running that was closest to the bear, I had now fallen over. And I couldn't quite figure out why until I stood up and I realized that I was still attached to my kite. Now, when we're doing all these kite sports, we have a leash on. And so we're
Mhm.
attached to the kite. So if we let go of it, it doesn't blow away. And of course, the wind was blowing my kite one way. I was running the opposite way and I was still attached to it. So eventually, that kite became my anchor. And I had fallen over. And when I got back up, I looked at that bear in the eyes, and it was now so close. Oh my goodness.
Mm.
I really thought that this was possibly my time. And, my favorite animal of a polar bear. This could be it, Jen. And I realized I didn't have a weapon. I realized I couldn't run. I stood there. The guy behind me had seen me fall over and he'd stopped and he started yelling and waving his arms like we're supposed to.
Mhm.
And I was not waving my arms. I was using my arms to try and get that leash off my kite. It's a Velcro strap that goes around your wrist. And I was just
Mhm.
trying to get that off so that I could then run away. But that bear's still running towards me, and I looked it in the eyes, and it was an incredible moment that I'll never ever forget. And then the next thing that happened was that I got that Velcro leash off, and the wind, right?
Mhm.
I call the wind my best friend. My best friend saved my life because it blew the
Mm.
kite away from me, and the bear turned and chased the kite.
Oh, wow. You know, you
Yeah.
say you're never gonna forget that. I think it's gonna stay with me for the next week and a half. That I would've oh my gosh, yeah, my heart was racing just you telling the story.
Oh my goodness. Yes, my heart was racing. Yes, it was one of the scariest moments in my life. And but overall, I'm just so grateful to have had an interaction with a polar bear like that and survived to tell the tale. And I'm even more stoked and grateful that the bear also survived as well, because the next thing that happened was Polar Bear Patrol turned up on their snow machine, and they have two guns in the back, and one has bullets
Mm.
and one has fireworks. And if they had seen the bear, they arrived after the fact. And so if they'd seen the bear chasing me and being that close, they would have used bullets. But they used fireworks to just scare it out back out of the village. And so I'm just so grateful that, I got to survive and the bear did too, because
Yes.
that would have been devastating um, if it
Now,
had turned out differently.
when you had such a climatic moment, um, did that set any setbacks to you as far as doing the kites and getting out there in the wild like that? Did you find yourself having a setback based on that encounter?
No, I wanted to go the next day.
Ah! Well, that goes to the next questions on how you, overcome setbacks.
I wanted to go and fly my kite the next day, but we had a group discussion, and we made the decision that the kite could have attracted the polar bear because it's up in the sky.
Mm,
It would have been able to see it from a distance, and it probably wasn't a great idea to attract a bear, towards me again. So we made the decision that that wasn't a good idea, but I was excited to fly it again. It did not scare me off the sport. It did not scare me off polar bears. I think it really increased my love of the bears. And as I said, I'm just so grateful for the experience, and it really made me appreciate my kite and the wind. And I really feel like they saved my life that day. And
mm.
to be that passionate about your own sporting equipment, probably not something everybody experiences.
Now, you mentioned you did a little bit, at a schooling with some children, yes?
Yes, yes, I love sharing my knowledge of kite flying with kids, and I have taught at quite a few schools. I love going in and teaching the kids about wind and kites and what kites are used for in our world, not just for fun and for sports, but they're used for weather, they're used for transport, they're used to generate power, and I love sharing that with the kids. And I also do kids kite making. I teach them how to make their own kite, and I just get so much joy out of seeing these other kids getting joy out of kite flying too.
Now, you don't just teach kites with children. Didn't you just write a book for kids?
I did. Thank you.
Well, you're
I
welcome.
I was so excited about sharing the joy of flying kites with these kids. I had a quite a pivotal moment one day after teaching the kids at the school. I went to the supermarket, and this lady came up to me and she said, "Are you the lady that taught the kids how to make kites today?" And I said yes, and I was wearing a hoodie that says "I love kites," so it
Mhm.
was quite, it
Kinda
was
of a
quite,
giveaway, yeah.
it was kind of a giveaway that I was that person. And she said, "I have to tell you a story." I said, "Please, please, I'd love that." And she said, "Well, you taught my daughter today, and I've picked her up from school every day this week, and she has been in tears. She's been
Mm.
really depressed. She's having a really hard time in life. I won't get into it, but and it's just as a mother, so devastating to see her like that. But she said, today I picked her up from school and she ran up to the car flying a kite with the biggest smile on her face. And
Mm.
it just gave me so much joy to see her smiling again. And I just wanted to thank you for that.
Aw, that's wonderful.
And to be told that I'd made a difference in a kid's life, that they had experienced that joy. I think I had a tear running down my face. And it made me realize that a simple kite can bring joy. It can
Mhm.
also help people build courage. I love running women's snow kite camps and inviting women to come and learn from me. And most of those women turn up, and boy, there's definitely some fear in the room. And once I teach them all the safety of the kites, and they get to ski around flying the kite, and they really become empowered by the wind power. They become empowered by overcoming their fears and proud of themselves for finding so much courage. A kite is just such a great tool that does so many more things than people think about. And so I decided that I would write a children's book and share my personal story of how I first flew a kite. And going back and thinking about that moment was probably good therapy for me as well, because it came at a time in my life when my brother he'd gotten cancer when he was 9, and he
Mm.
was told that he had to have his leg amputated. And that was just, devastating for our family and for me as his sister at the age of, 11 and 12, very fearful, finding out that he was only going to have one leg. And I actually, as a little girl, got very depressed and didn't really know
Mm.
how to handle, something that heavy. And when my brother got home and he was feeling better, it was my birthday coming up, and I didn't even think anyone would remember my birthday. But my brother ended up giving me a red kite for my birthday.
Oh.
And that was just such a changing point in my life. My dad helped me go out and learn how to fly this kite, and I remember being scared, thinking that maybe I wouldn't be able to do it, and then launching that kite and flying it in the sky just gave me so much joy. Again, I've mentioned it, it brought me courage, and then my brother was able to fly it on one leg too. And the book, it's called Gale and the Red Kite of Courage, and it tells that true story of my brother and I when we were growing up. It has a great bios in the back and tells the story of my brother, how he lost his leg, but then he became the world's best one-legged skier and got gold medals in the Olympics. And there's
Oh, that's amazing.
a fantastic photo of him skiing on one leg, and it shows pictures of me snow kiting, and again I'm teaching kids about wind and kite with some fun facts in there, and also I teach people, the kids, how to make their own kites. So it's not just a book for reading, but also good activities and learning and education as well.
Nice. So now tell me what's next. What's the big next adventure that's on your list?
The next big adventure, well, I'm very excited about going back to Alaska in a few weeks, and this will be my 24th year
Oh, wow.
going.
24. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I shared my first time in Alaska with you, I fell in love, and my husband still works as a heli ski guide up there, and I go up there, and I still teach people how to fly kites, both at the school and also on the mountain. We get a lot of skiers and snowboarders who go heli skiing up there, and when it's stormy and windy and the helicopters can't fly, I take them out for an adrenaline filled activity of teaching them to snow kite. And I really love doing that. I get so much joy out of sharing my passion with others, just as much as I do doing the sport. I love seeing other people do it too. So that's what I'm excited about. And I've also got my second children's book. Gail's about to learn how to snow kite in the
Oh,
second book
wow.
that's coming out. So that will share lessons of finding your own style and finding your tribe, the other people that enjoy doing the same thing as you do. And yeah, I'm excited about that. The illustrations are just beautiful.
Oh, sorry, that was my dogs. Sorry about that. That's the only downside on the weekend. My husband works, and I have all the dogs, and I'm out in my she shed, so they're all out here with me.
I
So,
love that. I love that. Every girl needs a she shed for sure.
oh, I would, like I said, I was hoping to stay in the house because they would have been quieter, but that's all right. um, I am just so captivated. Your stories are just so inspiring. So I really love it. And you know what? I would love to have you back. I would love to have you back when your next book comes out. And then maybe we could go a little bit deeper into adventure, the sports with children, and how you incorporate those into the books.
I would love to do that. Thank you so much for the invitation. I've
Oh, you're
really
welcome.
enjoyed chatting with you today, and I hope that the people out there listening have been entertained and educated and inspired. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being on. And I want to thank our listeners tonight. Thank you for the last 4 years, guys, and continue to tune in and download on all the venues that we're on. Have a great evening. Bye bye. Till next time.